Okay, let's discuss potential future NHL expansion. We're going to look at the city of New Orleans. Now, there's a reason why I'm looking at New Orleans, and that's because in recent weeks, reports have come out of North America that various representatives of potential interested ownership groups for future expansion have had meetings with the NHL and Gary Bettman. Now, this has been happening with quite a lot of regularity since Seattle joined the league as the 32nd team a couple of years ago. And of course, in the process of Arizona relocating to Utah, again, the topic of future expansion, once the Utah situation had stabilised, came and reared its head. Now, why New Orleans? Well, we do know, as I say, meetings have been held with interested parties that want to bring the NHL to New Orleans and the league and Gary Bettman. Meetings have been held. We know the state governor, Jeff Landry, is in favour of an NHL expansion team in New Orleans. So there is actually political backing. Now, the ECHL, which is a minor league affiliate of the NHL, has been in New Orleans before with the New Orleans Brass, who were there between 1997 and 2002. Now, they did use the New Orleans Arena, which has been renamed the Smoothie King Arena, which is the current home of the New Orleans Pelicans in the NBA. So there is an NHL-ready arena already in New Orleans. Now, it opened in 1999, so it's not the most modern arena going, but there is an NHL-ready facility. It has had upgrades since it was opened. Now, the Pelicans currently play there. You also have the New Orleans Saints in the NFL and the NOLA Gold in Major League Rugby. So there is professional sport in New Orleans. The Saints are quite successful. The NOLA Gold in Major League Rugby have a decent team for rugby union, that is. And so there is clearly an interest in pro sports in New Orleans. But let's have a look at some of the stats. The city population as of 2023 was 364,136. That makes it a smaller market than other locations the NHL is either considering or currently located. The metro population is 1.27 million, so that's similar to Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, where the Utah Hockey Club now play, is a similar metro size. So it's still a smaller market, and that will be a problem. And we've seen under Gary Bettman the expansion and relocation in what is called the Sun Belt. And there's been a lot of criticism of that expansion and relocation and the drive to grow the game in the southern half of the United States. New Orleans is right in the heart of the Deep South. Let's not kid ourselves. This is in Cajun country. This is Louisiana. And while it could work, because the NFL and NBA are quite strongly rooted in New Orleans, we've also seen some failures in the Sun Belt. We've seen the failure of the Atlanta Thrashers. We've seen the struggles and the eventual failure of the Arizona Coyotes, formerly the Phoenix Coyotes. We saw issues surrounding the Carolina Hurricanes and Florida Panthers at times. We've had issues with the Nashville Predators at times. So this Sun Belt Southern US expansion and relocation, there have been its struggles and missteps. However, on the flip side, there's been successes. The Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers, between them, have won 4 Stanley Cups. The Carolina Hurricanes have been to 2 Stanley Cup finals and won a Stanley Cup. The Nashville Predators have been to a Stanley Cup final. The Anaheim Ducks have won a Stanley Cup. The San Jose Sharks, another Californian team, have been to a Stanley Cup final. So there have been some successes alongside the missteps in the southern half of the United States. And the fact that there has been a hockey presence there in the past may go in favour of a future expansion bid or in a future expansion team in New Orleans. But in saying that, is there really the fan base there? Is this the right city to expand in? Considering there are much bigger markets like Atlanta, Phoenix, Houston, that are also in discussions with either returning the NHL in Phoenix's case, Atlanta's case, or bringing the NHL to a location. Houston's a much bigger market which will have more corporate money behind it, and money's a key thing. New Orleans and Louisiana is the poorest state in the US. New Orleans is not the wealthiest city, and that will be something that will be considered when considering expansion, is the expansion fees. And will locals, considering it is a smaller market, have the disposable income to spend on tickets, merchandise, watching on streaming services and TV? That's something that needs to be considered. Now, there's nothing to say the NHL won't go to New Orleans, but there are better candidates for the NHL to go to. Most notably Atlanta, Houston, They want to return to Phoenix. They've stated they will return to Phoenix. They have first refusal. And so these bigger metros, where there's more corporate money, more population, bigger TV audience, advertising, more disposable income, will probably be higher up the list than New Orleans. That's not to say that the NHL won't consider it in the future. We had the discussion the other day, will the NHL reach a 40-team league? And I believe that is entirely doable within the next few decades. I do believe that expansion will start again. The NHL has stated, however, they're not in expansion mode right now. That doesn't mean they're not willing to have discussions, including with the city of New Orleans and potential ownership groups. They're having discussions with Houston, Atlanta. There's been discussions with representatives of other ownership groups in the Phoenix metro. Even Omaha, Nebraska has come along and had discussions with the NHL. So, and Omaha is potentially a smaller metro than New Orleans. So there is clearly an interest for further expansion, even though the NHL has said right now they're not expanding. But would New Orleans be a good location? Would it work? As we've seen, some of the crowd numbers in the Sunbelt locations have struggled at times. Some of the teams have struggled at times, and we've seen relocations of teams in the Sunbelt, like Atlanta, like Arizona, where it has been an unfortunate failure. Mostly to do with the arena issues. Fans did turn up, but the teams weren't very good either, which didn't help build a future fan base. Doesn't mean there aren't hockey fans in New Orleans from the ECHL days. There are a lot of snowbirds, as the term is, from the northern half of the United States and Canada that have moved down to New Orleans to avoid the crappy weather. And so there's the potential. It's going to be harder to sell as an ownership group. The expansion fees are going to be pushing $750 million plus for an expansion team next time around. That's a lot of money. Would a wealthy owner or ownership group have that kind of money, considering the economy of New Orleans and Louisiana isn't the strongest in comparison to the rest of the US? Be interesting. So it's an open-ended question. Could New Orleans be a future NHL expansion city? Yes and no, but the NFL works well there. The NBA's got a presence there. There is an arena ready there where you can have a team, where some of the other cities, like Atlanta, for example, don't have an NHL ready arena. New Orleans does. So it's an interesting one, and it's a new city to make the list of potential and NHL expansion markets. We see the regular ones, like take a team back to Quebec. We see Houston, Kansas, Atlanta, Phoenix. We see all these cities regularly come up, and then New Orleans in the last few weeks, they've had constructive meetings with the NHL. So that's a spanner in the works. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you see New Orleans as a future potential NHL city? I'll be very interested to hear from viewers, but from me for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.